All right, guys. So our next topic here keeps us in the world of the DCEU or DC Universe, whatever it is, because a recent article came out, a Vanity Fair article came out with Chris Terrio, who was a writer on BVS, Justice League, but probably most predominantly his Oscar-winning run on Argo with Ben Affleck was a great movie. If you haven't seen Argo, go watch Argo. Great movie. But apparently, he's not really the only. I guess it's safe to say at this point, he's not the only person who was mad about how BVS and all that stuff turned out. But he is the one guy who's not afraid to come out and just say it. And I think he even says something very similar in his article. And John, I'm going to let you take the lead on this one because you had a chance to read through a little bit more than me about it. So,
Sure.
what kind of stuck out to you about this article that he had here?
Um, I mean, just the general sense that it was just yet another nail in the coffin of the fact that WB or Warner Brothers did not allow these movies to be made with without a lot of studio influence. And that Warner Brothers was more concerned with the idea of catching up to Marvel and the idea of hitting um different different release dates than it was with getting the stories and the characters done correctly in a way that really would that really they should have for characters that have existed for 80 plus going on 100 years. um and so I think he says that you know in the article he mentions that both the Snyder cut or the Snyder cut of Justice League and the extended director's cut of um Batman versus Superman are both far superior films to the theatrical cut. And unfortunately, the theatrical cut is what most people are familiar with, or most people got their at least got their first impressions from. And as we know very well with Justice League, but I think also to varying degrees with Batman versus Superman, the reaction to both those was generally negative. I myself hated Batman versus Superman for a long time because my initial interactions or my initial viewings of it was the the um the theatrical versions. And I think I've mentioned this on stream before, but my best example of this is at the beginning of the film when all the African warlords are murdered, and Superman is blamed for the slaughter of these African warlords. um in the theatrical cut, the warlords are shot by Lex Luthor's men, and Superman is blamed for their death. And it's like, when has Superman ever used a gun? Well, you're telling me that Superman's being blamed for his death, but we see them get shot by these Luthor guys. Like, that implies that Superman flew in there with his AK-47,
Yeah.
mowed these people down, and then took off, which makes zero sense. Like, he would just, if he wanted to kill that many people, he'd stand in the sky, heat vision them, or fly down and fly through them, and that would be the ball game. It would be over. Instead, he brings a gun with him. No. But in the ultimate cut, it's shown that not only do they kill them with their guns, but then they burn the bodies, which thus implies that Superman used heat vision. And it's done so much better. It gives more motivation, more
Context.
explanation, context. Thank you, to what goes on. So anyway, his point is, because Warner Brothers was insisting that they hit release dates and that they hit certain run times, so much of these films had to be butchered that they just don't hold up. They're not good films, and they get a lot of criticism that's kind of justifiable, but it's not justifiable based on what the creators of the films were actually trying to do. He
One thing
also,
I saw too, though, is he
yeah,
mentions like if you take, and this is true with all film, but he was obviously referencing these things, and primarily with Justice League. But he said if you take out all the moments that explore the actual characters, all the character moments, no one cares. Because I think you even said this too, like no one cares about like the big CG fights and stuff. And
yeah,
he goes on to say something like that. It's like it turns out when you take all the character moments out of the movie,
all
you
the
know
VFX in the world doesn't
it doesn't
save it.
help it,
Yeah,
yeah, which was interesting because and it's true. It's like, and that's one thing that Marvel's always done well is like, especially with these Disney Plus shows, it's like they're a lot more character driven.
yeah,
Like, they don't rely on like, Falcon Winter Soldier's had some more action beats than WandaVision did, but it's still ultimately about the characters,
yeah.
which is that's what makes the movie, you
Well,
know?
and you look at a movie that Warner Brothers seems to love and be like, this is the model going forward, and was Todd Phillips' Joker movie. Take out all the scenes where, the Joker is getting beat up while he's out spinning the sign around and stuff. Take out that moment, because it's not, it isn't a big exciting action moment. Or take out the moments when he's sitting at home talking to his mom and it's showing how much of a loner and a recluse he is. Take all that out of the movie and then play the movie. The movie plays completely differently. It doesn't make as much sense. You don't have the motivations and character development. And so yeah, you go to any movie and you remove that much of it, it's going to hurt the film. So he talks about that a great deal, about how much the studio involvement really hurt these films. He also talks about just odd marketing choices, like the fact that he feels the studio was probably behind the name Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. He said in his versions and his scripts, he never gave the film a title, and that would not have been the title that he would have given it. But he felt that there was probably somebody in the marketing department that thought, well, we got to have the name Batman in there, and we got to have the name Superman in there. We didn't have Superman in Man of Steel. Maybe that's why Man of Steel only made 650 or 700 million dollars. Maybe if the name Superman had been there, it would have done better. Which I don't think is the case, but
No,
whatever.
because honestly, good marketing was you have Man of Steel come out because it fit the story and the tone, and then the second one is called Superman
Yeah,
because now he is Superman.
yeah.
That's what should have happened.
Yeah. So, he goes on to talk about some of the odd marketing stuff. He also talks a great deal about how on Batman versus Superman, he was brought in after an initial script. There was already a script that was written, and that in that script you still had Batman branding people, but by the end of the film in that script, Batman brands Lex Luthor, and he said that there was no character development for Batman in that movie. Batman is a bitter, beaten down. He compares him to Ahab from Moby Dick. He's this man with this single-minded vision and determination to stop the Kryptonians because of the Kryptonian War and stop them at all costs. And he won't listen to reason or rationale, even those of people he's known his entire life, like Alfred. And he said when he came in, he really tried to give Bruce at least some redemption in that film, and then was going to give him even more, as we've seen now in the Snyder Cut. Um, and he said, Warner Brothers, after the initial reaction to Batman versus Superman, and while they were filming Justice League, came in and were kind of like up in arms about the tone and how dark it was and stuff. And his feeling was, hey, when you brought me in, these films were even darker. I mean, my God, the script that you handed me to work on for Batman versus Superman was a very dark script. And here I am trying to lighten things and trying to bring some actual, I can't think of what I want to say, some actual redemption or some hope to these
Humanity.
films. Humanity, thank you, to these films. And now I'm the problem, that my stories, my dark tone, this is a tone that you guys established well before I even got here. So, um, he kind of plays it up as there's a little bit of him, I think, I think he's bit his tongue for the past 5 years, as he's seen things that he worked on and actually felt proud of kind of get butchered. And this is kind of him kind of fighting back against that and saying, hey, look, um, there were some good things that happened in these films, and that was kind of butchered by the studio. So, um, yeah, it was definitely an interesting article.
It's a long one too, as you
It
can see as
is.
I'm scrolling through it.
Yes, yes. Um, and he confirmed some of the stuff that's out there. Again, this one you just happened to stop on with Cyborg and Ray Fisher, that Ray Fisher did have input into the Cyborg character, and that's why he has such a better arc and is such an important integral part of the story in Zack Snyder's Justice League. So a lot of confirmation about a lot of the things you've been hearing or involving these movies for a while, and as well as just some new information here and there about them. So it was an interesting read. I would recommend people go look at it if they're interested at all in how this debacle all happened and unfolded with Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, honestly. I think that one of the biggest takeaways that I've had since the Snyder Cut came out is that the Cyborg character was really good. Like he comes across as this like mopey kind of in both movies. He comes across as a very mopey kind of sad man,
Mhm.
robot man, but then in the Snyder cut, you actually see, like, his humanity, and
Mhm.
he's a the through line of the whole freaking movie, and but you see that he is just like he's a robot with a heart, like, with the scene, like, from with the woman at the ATM and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and then, like, the flashback to him at school helping people and all this stuff, so he doesn't you see that in the Snyder cut, he's not just some, like, mopey dude, he's just a dude who's just dealing with a lot of internal pain, a lot of struggle, like, he doesn't know what to do. But you never got any of that with, like, the Whedon cut, which speaks to just what Terrio was saying with, like, when you take out all these character moments, like, the movie just sucks, it doesn't make any sense, like, you just don't care,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So
and the one thing I didn't touch on was he talked about how Warner Brothers was more concerned with hitting release dates, but they were also, oh, I lost my train of thought. They were more concerned with hitting release dates, but they didn't even have the stories for what was coming after in any
yeah.
kind of way, shape, or form fleshed out. So he said he's sitting there writing Justice League, and he doesn't know how Warner Brothers is going to handle the Aquaman movie and talking underwater. Whether or not they're going to communicate telepathically, whether or not they're just going to talk in the water and they're going to be able to hear each other, or whether or not they're going to do these kind of air bubbles that Snyder used in the Snyder cut. He said Warner Brothers had no idea what they were going to do, and he couldn't get them to give him information. He had no idea what they were doing with Wonder Woman and how the Amazons were going to play, and so when you're trying to build a world or build a movie that is involved with other franchises or in other films, but you don't have that information, you're kind of making up on the go and making adjustments as the studio comes back to you and says, well, wait a minute, this isn't going to work because we're going to do this and this. And it's just such a half-assed, excuse my language, but half-assed way to do a movie. You look at something like the MCU where you have this guiding voice in Kevin Feige, and when they go to decide how Rocket Raccoon is going to communicate and look, that carries through not just from Guardians, but over into the Avengers films and things like that. So you have this consistency, which creates this overall tone, this overall world that you can really buy into. And that
Mhm.
was not Warner Brothers' approach. Warner Brothers' approach was, oh my God, Marvel's making a ton of money. We should be too. Here's when we're releasing movies. Go and make them,
Yeah.
and we'll whatever. So yeah,
Well, and with that too, I mean, even the Russos even said that when they shot the scenes with the Guardians in Infinity War, James Gunn was brought in,
yeah,
like, because he established the Guardians, so he was there to, like, help advise, if you will, just like he wrote the lines and, like, guided the scene because, like, even the Russos knew that, like, they're already established and wanna make sure that, like, it's consistent with the things that came before it, and whether or not that was all the Russo's decision or if it was Kevin Feige's decision, it doesn't matter, it's just they had the foresight to actually do that, or as opposed to WB's just kinda shooting from the hip,
yeah,
like, with all this DC stuff, which is just it's honestly insane when you look at how much money is left on the table, it's like they have these opportunities to have something as successful as Marvel,
yeah,
because I mean, everyone knows the DC characters. I mean, all the main ones. There's no one bigger than Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. There's nothing bigger.
yeah.
But people are more interested in seeing a freaking Iron Man movie these days, which is baffling. This is a world I never thought I would live in. Like, seriously, it's crazy.
But it just goes to show that when you put the time and the effort and you give these things the attention and, um, well, the attention that they deserve, and you do it when you do it right, it can be successful. It doesn't matter who the character is. Rocket Raccoon can be a household name because,
Yeah.
Marvel didn't just say, "Hey, we need to have a Guardians movie in 9 months. Go film something." They said, "James Gunn, what's your vision for a Guardians movie? This is kind of what we're looking at." And you work within, you give them time to, and then once you have all that lined up and you're ready to go, then sure, yeah, I understand you can set a date and work towards that date. But that was not Warner Brothers' approach. Seemed to be more, hey, let's pick some dates that we really get some movies out, and
Mhm.
then we'll work out everything else.
Yeah, I mean, that was even proven with the Justice League stuff because, like,
Sure.
it was news information, like established factual information that the studio had. I forget his name off the top of my head. I can't remember, but he made Joss Whedon stick to the initial release date of Justice League despite him wanting him to come in and retool the whole movie and all that, because the movie needed to come out before the end of the year so he could get his bonus.
Yep.
That was explicitly the only reason the movie even kept that release date, which is why I give Joss Whedon a lot of credit for making a somewhat palatable movie in that short period of time that he had. It's like, it's not only was it like you get thrown into something that you had nothing to do with, it was also, I have 4.5 hours of a movie that you're not familiar with really at all, and I need you to cut it down to 2 hours, and you have, 6 months to do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a daunting task. Like, and the fact that he was even able to get a watchable movie, maybe not a good movie, but even able to get it done, is pretty crazy. Like,
Yeah.
so props to that. Like, that's not something I would want to do at all. So, question is, guys, did you have a chance to read this article that, like I said, if you just look up Vanity Fair, Chris Terrio, it is there. It's a very long article. Like, I myself haven't even got through it all, but it is, there's some good information there. So if you ever wanted to hear of someone who's actually connected with, the Hollywood world, actually speak some truth, the same thing that a lot of people out there have kind of been feeling and even theorized, here it is. This is a good one to read. So go check it out and let us know what you think down in the comment section below.